It's Re-Iterate, the digital marketing podcast. So, welcome to Re-Iterate. First guest in the studio today, well, online. It's Terry Flack from Connect Digital, a very good friend of mine. Works in some really interesting spaces with Google and all things digital. We want to talk about adaptation in the renewed world. I think it's time that we pull in the industry guys and see how they're adapting, how they're not, how they're seeing clues in their staff when things are going right or wrong, and how business has been, how things are working or perhaps not. And then maybe privately, the challenges they've had and the things they've seen as great success. So welcome, Terry. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Clint. Yeah,
Cool,
lovely
man.
to chat with you in this forum and this really fundamental topic that you've hit on. So thanks for having me this morning.
Cool, man. It's actually quite cool because we chat over coffee often, and this is forced this, which wouldn't have happened, and this is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
no, it's exactly that. Just brings into question the quality of your coffee at home, though. Hey?
yeah, true story. Yeah, we need to actually look after those guys and get back and see them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I've kind of been a bit slack on that, to be honest. Do you want to talk a bit about Connect and what you guys do?
Sure. Thanks, Clint. Appreciate that. So we are, for want of a better term, a boutique agency. We're a small, tight-knit team, and really, I guess, and I know it's an old adage, but our primary focus is digital innovation, but delivered with exceptional relationships. So I've always taken the view that your relationships are formative, and one of the key focuses, and I think it's certainly been the inspiration from the much loved Mr. Branson, or Sir Richard as he's known.
Yeah.
And he's always taken the view of put your team first, and they will take care of your customers. So I think during this time, Clint, it's actually been incredibly interesting to see the dynamics within the team, from an adaptation, a need for adaptation, and the individual's ability to adapt, and how that affects the team dynamic. And certainly within our business, it's actually been quite alarming, the shakeups that we've had. We had one staff member go rogue, and he did a couple of cheeky maneuvers and had to exit him out of the business. And this was at the height of all of this happening, so that was a bit of a shake-up for us. We had another staff member who had been a little bit challenging in terms of the culture of the organization, and through the shake-up that actually saw her exit. So in a lot of ways, we've actually seen far more cohesiveness in the team, and because we in the physical realm, pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, we would commit to our classic Monday morning meetings, but through lockdown we were now doing it 3 times a week, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and have continued that discipline, and it's actually been incredibly productive because everybody is on, everybody is communicating, everybody is engaged, and everybody is putting forward what their focus is. So I think that we're far more efficient and effective than we were pre-lockdown. So there's as with all things, there's been a number of real gems that have come out of this, and it really has been a lesson in how we in life and in business show up to the challenges that we face.
That's really interesting. I kind of thought that might be summary along the answer, but that kind of fits exactly what I've experienced and seen in other businesses as well. People show up and they do their job, and the ones that are at a desk, you don't know if they're showing up because you just see them. They're just a number, the head count. When this happens, where is this person? And it becomes really evident quickly that they're not doing anything. We're having and maybe this is a debate for another day, I don't know. I'm having a conversation with a lot of people around what is a middle manager. And it's been it started as a dinner time kind of joke. What do they do? And I think now there's more of that question than ever. And I actually saw on a designers forum the other day, designers were asking, why is my middle manager sitting at home What are they doing? I'm just reporting straight to traffic or straight to my account director. And they're working in those kind of relationships. So I think there's going to be a shift, especially in our business, with what does middle management do? Is there a need for it?
Yeah, and it brings up an interesting point. Pre-COVID, and I guess over the years of having been in business, there's always been your classic hierarchical structure of a business. So you got the boss man on the top, and as you go down the level, so you drop in seniority and I guess decision-making contribution to the business.
Right.
And I think in a lot of ways that is really an outdated mode of business management. And I think back to when I was studying 20 years ago, we were talking about the difference in business structure, one being hierarchical and the other being concentric. And concentric is obviously where you've got your team leader and everybody's working around them. As opposed to the boss man at the top, and then it's got to filter through all of these layers. So we're now in a place of forced concentric team-oriented dynamics, which is actually so much more effective because of that middle manager syndrome. So I think that has been a massive positive for us.
That's really interesting that you've seen that. There's a really good book by a guy called Niall Ferguson. I don't know if you know of it. It's called The Square and the Tower, and he talks about those two different management styles.
Okay.
And the tower is obviously the hierarchy, and how the square really makes business sense these days, and how that's kind of how Silicon Valley works and everything. Check it out if you haven't. But he makes a really good point about why this is the way forward. I noticed the other day, it's been a couple of times with an agency I'm working with at the moment. We're presenting to quite a big bank and did a whole new website design and structure. And normally that would be, a 20-minute meeting beforehand, hand it over, and the seniors we go off and present. Well, the designer presented because she can, and did a better job than all of us, of course, because she understands what she's doing. And the feedback was as good, if not better, than it's going to be if you get the suits in the room. And she went from meeting one, starting out, struggling with English because she's Afrikaans, to being fluent and brilliant at just presenting by meeting two.
Fantastic
for people here.
Yeah, and think about the impact that'll have on that one individual's life. Her confidence, her self-belief, her knowing that she can actually do it because she's done it. Whereas previously she would have been lost in the quagmire of suits. So fantastic to see that people and their talent, ability, passion is now able to bubble to the surface and be shown for what it is.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And it was also really nice to be there to support. So when the hard questions were asked and floundering a little bit, because you got to dance a bit, kind of could step in and answer those questions and then show her. So next time she'll be able to do that or pre-think them. The way it works. It's all about practice. I think it's really, really cool. And she shows up already, but she's going to do exceptionally well, I think, now. She's got that extra thing in her bow,
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that we often forget, and certainly having seen this in my previous foray into the corporate world, that people are people, and they're not numbers, they're not cogs in a machine. They are real humans with real emotions, real lives. And the more that we can understand that, the more that we can work with that, the more that we can actually bring the magic that is so inherent and often so suppressed within them to the surface, and you just get so much more from an individual because they are feeling validated, they're feeling worthwhile, and there's so much to be said for that, Clint.
Oh, absolutely. That kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about. And do you find that the creativity or the interaction has suffered or benefited? Some people are better at it than others in terms of a virtual space. And I've had different reports from different agencies and different people. Some love being at home, some don't. What have you found with your team? And is there a specific kind of personality type that prefers the way you're doing it? And what are you doing, or what were you doing when you were remote that held it together?
Yeah, fascinating question. And I think that also just brings to the surface the individuality, because you see those that have decided, actually, we're going to make the most of this. We're going to conquer this. We're going to come out of this better than we went into it. And those are the people who you are now seeing are really starting to thrive. And then you're seeing the others who are kind of succumbing to I guess, the psychological impact, the depression of it, the frustration, the family dynamics, all of those sort of things. I mean, we've got a couple of staff members who actually love coming to work because it's just so frustrating being at home, and they feel almost a little bit suffocated there. So it really is it's been very different dynamics, but I think that we're seeing a far greater level of commitment, contribution, creativity, and for me, one of the things that has been so amazing is actually seeing people taking ownership and going, okay, I'm not here just to monkey see, monkey do, and deliver. I'm actually here to make a difference and contribute, and that there's real power in that, because that is something that energizes people and enables them to step up to the next level, step more into their true potentiality. And that's been one of the things over the years working with my team, where I could see the magnificent potential that they have, far more than they can, because for whatever reason their life path has taken them to this point. They lack a sense of worth.
Right. I understand that. I see that in the youngsters when I lecture, and at 20 years old they're broken already. It's just terrible, and the point is to make them feel important. You know.
Yeah.
The first thing I ever say to them is, "I'm not here to teach you anything. You're already an expert," and that changes their mood already. So it's really cool that that's happening.
I've seen you in action on that, and it actually is amazing. I know that one lecture that I attended with you, and you were talking, but I was watching the participants, and you can actually just see the light shine in their eyes for that moment, that flicker that comes on, that they go, actually, maybe there's truth in that, like, but they haven't been given the tools to actually enable themselves, and that's a really important point.
I completely, and sometimes they haven't been given the permission.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
I can take them to the water, then they've got to kind of drink it and give themselves permission from there. But it's 99% of the time you can, and it's amazing that you're getting that out of this with your team as well. One of these things. What's been have you been able to see? I mean, one of the definitions of a leader is not really about you. It's never about you. It's about everybody else. To see when someone's struggling, maybe psychologically or just with a space. And have you got any tips or anything for businesses out there, for leaders, that they can see and manage teams or people, or is it just more of a feel?
Yeah, you know, Clint, it's there's that old term in the banking industry, know the customer, know your customer. And I think that the same needs to be applied to know your staff, because they're not your staff. They are people in your team who are working alongside you, and understand their dynamics. And I don't think all business leaders necessarily subscribe or agree to this as a principle. But for me, understanding the family dynamics, understanding what people are going through, you know, what are their family lives all about? What are they like doing? You know, what are their fears, hopes, dreams? Get to know them as individuals, and that, if nothing else, is actually really enriching for you as an individual, for you as a business leader, because you get to see how other people live. A classic example was yesterday. My wife, who's an extreme empath, and she's just such a loving, caring person. And one of her staff members has to now work from home, and so she went out to take her set of groceries and so on, because this lady is just self-quarantining for a moment. And she actually just said she cannot believe how this individual is living, where she's having to work off the floor. So she's out getting desks and sorting everything out for her today, and had no idea. And you know, that for her was actually quite an emotional moment, because this is somebody who's formative to your business. and knowing who that person is and how they live and what their beliefs are and what, like I say, what their hopes and dreams are. You get to know the person, and by knowing the person, that individual is far more honoring of you and your business and your customers, and that all round is a far better place to be than, listen, you've got to flog the horse and get as much out of it as you can.
That's really interesting. So again, another thing that comes out of this displacement is more of a sense of understanding. I mean, normally I imagine that person would have been sick, they would have gone home, wife wouldn't have really worried about it too much because they're at home doing whatever they need to do. This is a different scenario. She goes there and sees, whoa, this is the reality of this person. That would never happen.
No, exactly.
You know?
Exactly that.
Yeah. And I see it, yeah.
Yeah, and I even think to the point, I mean, it's kind of changed a bit of my perspective in terms of your recruitment selection process as well. You know, we're in the process of hiring a couple of new key team members, and I want to know more about them. I want to know what their family situation is. I want to go have a cup of tea or a dinner with their family and actually see where they come from and who they are, because knowing that background is fundamental to knowing that individual. And so you know that when that individual is going through a dip, you've got an insight as to why.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a very different interview.
Yeah.
Right, we're going for dinner.
Tell me about it. And I'm not so sure how keen the candidate will be, but I'm going to pitch it to them.
Oh, absolutely. I think that they're probably going to love it or hate it, and that'll give an indication about them as well.
Exactly right.
Sadly, and this is a lesson I learned a while ago from CEO. It was just a passing comment, but because whenever I work with companies, I always negotiate what those terms are. I think that's the way to do it. Most people don't, and then they get upset that they've agreed to something they don't want to. Like, well, you've got to honor the agreement that you set out. So I always talk about what I want, and the thing people don't like talking about is money. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But how I work, when I work, what I do. And I said, you guys are quite a traditional company, but if I'm going to work with you, understand that I'm not a traditional person. I'll work at 3 a.m. if that needs to be done, but I'm not necessarily 8 o'clock in the morning kind of everyday person. It doesn't suit the work I do. It doesn't suit anything. And he said to me, Clint, sadly, I'm quite a straight up and down guy, but even I have to admit there are rules for some people and there are rules for others. And he basically meant the way that you conduct yourself and the way that you show up gives you the freedom to work as you choose and be as you are. And the rules that you're going to have, maybe that I've got, are a lot more relaxed than someone else's. And that goes back to them showing up. Do you think that applies? I think that applies to a lot of people, but do you see that at the moment? Do you see that going forward? How's your structure? Is it going to remain quite structured in terms of time and linear, or is it already opened up to different things?
Yeah, look, it shifts. The adaptation in terms of traditional structure has definitely needed to shift, and it's something from a cultural point of view that I've been working on over the last few years to instill, and that is the fact that the traditional mentality is show up at 8, have your lunch hour at 12, and off you go at 4:30, day's done. And there's also certain industries, and I just keep thinking whenever we watch a legal drama, how those blimmin' lawyers work through the night and they're doing, 10 straight days of 18 hours a day, and I don't think that's the way to go. But the traditional structure, certainly in my view, needs to shift from the structured time allocation to customer-centric delivery. And if we've got a delivery commitment, then we've just got to pull together, make it happen, and do the very best that we can. But at the same time, and this is something that from a cultural point of view, I'm trying to do more of with the team, is that when we do have the spaces, let's take a breather. If it's if it's a Wednesday afternoon, we know that we delivered and we're not feeling the pressure. Let's just go grab a pizza together and we don't need to talk work. Actually, let's just connect with each other at a human level, and I think just reinvigorate and renew yourself for a moment And
Yeah.
and what that does is that it also gives your creativity a chance to refuel and reignite, and that's a really important thing. So for me, the fluidity as opposed to the structure is our new norm.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think a lot of businesses are going to struggle with that. And I think they're going to struggle with it twofold. One is management's never been comfortable with that. But the second thing now is the staff, the internal customer, they've now been aware that, hey, you know what? There's a different world out there. And I've just been exposed. I've been working at home for 3 months. I can have my coffee whenever I want. I'm wearing slippers. I do whatever I want. No one necessarily knows that I've gone to take my mother shopping at 10 o'clock in the morning. And those kind of become norms. And as long as the work doesn't get affected, I don't see how that's going to be a problem. But I can see pushback and this amazing tension with companies. And I even see it in the kind of tech space where, like the Googles and all that of the world, you know, you go to the offices and there's lunch and there's all the rest of the guys can go and eat as much as they want and do whatever they want and sit by the pool. And they're going, why am I sitting by your pool? I don't want to. I want to sit on my own. Yeah. I mean, and I know Twitter has said, don't ever come back to work. That's what they announced that yesterday. Like or don't like Twitter for all the weirdness that it is. I think that's a fundamental kind of signal, isn't it? It's a clarion to say, like, the new way of doing it is I need to really care about what these people want. And these people don't want an office. Yeah. Or they do. I think it's going to be the push now. The dynamics change. It's not a begrudging C-suite and an HR pushing them there. It's now the bottom up kind of going, no, this doesn't work for me. Yeah. You know?
Exactly that. And I think that's also far more acknowledging of the fact that people do have lives and Absolutely. They do have families and they do have something that's outside of work. You know, I think that it's been hell of an assumptive from your execs and business owners over the years that these are employees. They're not. Yeah. They're team members, and I think that there's such power in languaging, and when you're talking the difference between a boss and a leader, and an employee and a team member, it's words, but words have power, and I think that the more that we're thinking in that way, that we've got to harmonize home and work for the betterment of the individual, and the betterment of the individual ultimately results in the betterment of the business. So it makes damn good business sense to actually do it that way. And yes, there are those folk who need structure, who need order, whose lives have just been controlled through the family environment while they were growing up, and et cetera, and they battle with that a little bit. You know, it's just a matter of tell me what to do and I'll do it. And now you're starting to create liberty, freedom, and choice, which has never been part of their makeup. And so that you see that shift, and so it does come with some challenges, but they're interesting challenges. And one of the things that has been so, I think, enlightening for me is actually seeing those who do or have traditionally worked well within structured parameter and control, and now that they're seeing the benefit of having a little bit more freedom and liberty, that it's actually seeing them blossom as individuals.
That's interesting, eh? I never thought about, to be honest, because I'm very much whatever I need to do. I'm very free like that. But you need to create an environment that's also safe for those people that don't like change, and they need maybe an office to go to. Maybe you need a desk for 3 of those people that really need that security. And I'm sure the rest of them will blossom and thrive. Some people won't. And that's like taking an office person and saying, this is the way it's been for 100 years, and that's the corporate, I'm going to use the word man, I'm going to genderize it because that's been the way. And you do a 180 and say, that's the terrible way, don't ever be like that. You can't do that because every kind of person makes up the world and we need them, you know? I don't want, I might want a creative accountant, but I don't want one who skips around. I'd rather than just be the accountant and make sure my business and my taxes and everything's done properly. And I don't want a creative person that disappears and I never see them, but I want some kind of balance. And you've got to allow for these different kinds of people. It's going to be an interesting challenge. And how I can see how bosses are going to have to kind of really now come to terms with different kinds of people. You know, we always talk about, I think it's one of the fundamentals of our business, of business in general. When we talk about customers, it's about the personalized experience, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's user journeys or whatever nonsense we're talking about, but we've never thought about personalizing the experience of our staff for our teams. And that's
so true. And you know, you and I have had over our many coffees the discussions about the experience economy. And actually, until you mentioned it now, I hadn't thought of the application of that within the work environment. But it is exactly that. You know, what is the experience? And you know, just thinking back a couple of days ago, I had to bring all the team members in from their various homes and so on. We just needed to get together on a project we were working on.
Yeah.
And it was actually so heartwarming to see these individuals, some of whom hadn't seen each other for a good few weeks, and to see the genuine affection between them, even though they've been working day in, day out in the virtual sense, but actually providing that ability for them to connect. So, yeah, I think to your point, it's we need a hybrid. It's not going to be the traditional corporate fixed structured environment, and I think that having a completely fluid and free environment is not necessarily going to work to everybody's advantage. But finding something perhaps where there is the workplace and it is your anchor point and it is a place where people can come together, and then actually just enabling them with the system structures, tools, and I guess emotional and psychological support to have the fluidity to start experimenting with a little bit more free form in terms of their lives, but also providing the stability and the anchor of that work nest, for want of a better term.
Yeah, that's going to be so interesting.
Yeah.
Suddenly KPIs become very real, huh?
It's exactly that. It's exactly that.
Yeah, I remember doing lots of those HR forms back in the day, and I thought, well, I'm going to have a meeting again in 6 months, the review's going to happen, and those KPIs are going to be meaningless because the world shifts. But now we can use them, you know? I think quarterly is too far ahead. You almost need to use them weekly. If people need that kind of stuff, that'll give some structure.
Yeah. Well, look, to tell you a quick story on that before we move on, Clint, I do a performance review on a monthly basis with my team, and performance review is really split into 3 elements.
Okay.
And the first element is 10 points, which essentially, without me terming them, is KPIs. But the first 5 of that is all the soft skills. You know, how are you in terms of your timekeeping and time management? How are you doing in terms of working within the team and your relationships with clients and all of that good stuff? And then 5 points in terms of the specifics of the job. And it's a self-appraisal, and then I do the appraisal on that, and the scoring comes out accordingly. And pretty much to a T for every one of my team, there was an expected dip in their scoring over March and April. And the heartwarming part about it is that May started picking up, and then their June appraisals, pretty much every single staff member had scored at their highest score. And like I said, it's a score that happens from my side and their side. And then we get the cumulative score on that. So that in itself, I think, was a real eye opener in terms of people stepping up and the power of them stepping up. So that was fantastic.
That's amazing. So the ripples kind of have become waves, and that's the new motion that you're going through. That initial thing, obviously, there was some time to. Oh wow! So they really, really have embraced whatever this is that they're living in now.
Yeah, and I think to continue with your metaphor on that, I think that they understandably, like all of us, emotionally, psychologically, were feeling like they were drowning in the waves that were starting to swell, swell big time in March and April, and they've now built themselves in conjunction with what we're doing as a team, their own little life rafts or their own little sailing boats, and there's now a sense of liberty and a sense of accomplishment that we're actually overcoming bigger waves than we had before, and we're more productive, more effective, more creative, and more impactful than we were previously.
I lost you there for a sec, but that is amazing. That really is amazing. The adaptability of people is incredible. And as you said, you've also had some casualties along the way. I'm sure they'll find their thing somewhere else that suits them. And I think that's cool, eh? You know, everyone's got to paddle their own canoe.
It is what it is. I mean, think about it, that old adage, and it's always applied in terms of our personal relationships, where you got a friend for a day, a friend for a season, a friend for life. And the same thing in the context of staff. And, you know, I think that if you can celebrate, if there's no malicious intent or ill will from a staff member, and if they want to move off in another direction, celebrate it, support it, encourage it. You know, it's fantastic. I had one of my team members do that, and she was like, "Oh, look, I've got this job opportunity with another agency, and I've really got to explore it, and I'm feeling so bad about telling you this." I was like, "Go, you've got to go try
Totally.
it, go try it. It'll be amazing."
3
months later, she was back with us. So that for me was a lovely accolade, that there may be something that we're doing right culturally.
That's amazing. Look, it's amazing from a whole bunch of levels. I mean, the one that she came back, obviously that door was opened, the fact that you have those conversations. I've had those before with people when they leave, and they petrified, and you're like, go for it. It's going to be amazing. And it's great to see those people, maybe if she hadn't come back in 6 months to a year, 10 years, and they're somewhere else in a different context. Hey, how's it going? It's such a rewarding thing. You've got a history, but now you're friends, not mortal enemies, because they dared leave the company. I can never figure out companies that do that. It's weird.
They lose the humanity of the relationship, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I do too. So, last question for you, or last kind of topic to talk about is, how have you found the relationship with the clients? Because beautiful, you're talking about the internal stuff, but there is these other guys that pay the bills every now and then. And how have you found the relationship with them? Has it changed in terms of feel, or has it just changed in terms of the tech? Are there kind of types of people that perhaps want you to do the traditional and they're feeling a bit unloved, or are they embracing this and kind of moving forward because they have to? This isn't like 2 years ago where they demanded you to come and meet with them and have coffee. They can't do it anymore. So I think that's changed the way that they feel about it, the way they have to deal with it. So what's your feeling on that? What have you noticed? Are there any frustrations or any positives?
You know, Clint, I think very simply, true colors. True colors have bubbled to the surface.
Right.
We've had a couple of clients who have just not engaged and not paid and not communicated despite efforts and so on. But I mean, that was, if it's two, it's a lot.
Right.
Then there's been a couple of clients who have tried to play hard ball, and we've just gone back with the humanity of it. Say, listen, we're all in this. Let's work a plan. How can we do it? How can we see our way through this together? And I think that served us well. But for the most part, I think people have been phenomenal. It's kind of like it's taken off the and I don't want to say the corporate veneer, but let's say the businessy veneer of people, and it's got us down to heart. You know, it's moved us from headspace into heart space, so we can have real conversations and say, guys, we know you going through this. We want to help you in this way. We're gonna, we're not gonna bill you for the next couple of months on this particular aspect. We're gonna help where we can, but let's keep the continuity going. And so I think that if there's an authenticity in the relationship and the focus for the client, where it's actually not just about the client billing, which for me should be the last consideration of it, as important as money in the bank is. But that relationship and that connectedness is actually formative, and that defines everything that happens thereafter, including paying the bills. So it's actually, and I was saying to one of my clients recently, he's one of our bigger clients, lovely guy, salt of the earth, but he's been battling with cancer for the last little while, and he's been going through his changes, etc., and he's been going through his treatment, and it has been a challenge. But taking the time to actually find out how he is, rather than actually we're just going to get straight into the business side of it and so on. has actually strengthened the relationship, but not just
Yeah.
because I've asked the question and he's grateful for it, but because actually from a compassionate point of view, I have a far greater understanding of where he is and who he is. So
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the humanity of it. So it's in a lot of ways it's been a forced scenario that is enabled through the adaptation of relationships to be more human together and not have to always be so businessy about it.
I find that so refreshing and so true. And I'm not a salesperson. Never have been. I don't like selling stuff. But having conversations or relationships with people, I generally get them to agree that maybe my suggestions or the way forward is the way that I've proposed. But I can't sell it to them. If I have to go into one of those rooms where I'm selling,
It's not you.
it's not me. It doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel right. And this relationship stuff is much more important. Much more. It's not because I'm being dishonest. I'm actually being really honest. I think that's a terrible idea. This is why, and I'm being genuine. I'm going to make a lot of money by doing it, but don't do it, please. And they see the benefit in that. And I've struggled with companies where it's been about the sales. It just doesn't ring for me.
Clint, I think that at all stages of life, business or personal, your honesty and integrity defines your reputation, and money can't buy that. And the better your reputation, the more the people are willing to hear what you've got to say. I look at the contrast between my wife and myself. Now she just lauds me as a super salesman because I just get so excited and so passionate. I've got all these ideas, and I just I'm an energizer bunny about it. But as a result, that comes through very effectively from a sales point of view. So I'm good at that, and I know that.
Yeah.
I've always followed a path of sales without it being sales. Yes, there's techniques, and I understand all of that, and all the learning and so on. But it's actually about who are you, what can I help you with, and getting to the depth of that, and the passion, fervor, excitement, and so on. And that's my sales technique. My wife is so much like you, where she's kind of almost anti-sales. Oh, I can't sell, and if you put her in a room like you put you in a room, and the authenticity and the truth that comes out of it, people just resonate with that, and it becomes, if the match is there, if you've got the harmony of what you're offering and what they're needing, it's a fait accompli.
Yeah, I do feel that. And I love the fact that there's so many ways to approach it. And it's great to have different skills, different people that get excited about different things. The one thing though, I mean, you're a great salesman, but you also speak the truth. You're not a guy, walking around with a briefcase flogging some weird kind of product. You're selling stuff you do believe in.
You remember those days?
I do. And Kirby vacuum cleaners, I think, was one other. But you're selling something you believe in. And I think that's something that I resonate with, and I completely get that. One of my favorite people ever is Seth Godin. They don't really know about him in Boston anymore, which is kind of sad. Because he's been talking about this stuff for 20 years,
Yeah, exactly.
And one guy said to him, so I hear you don't like meetings. He goes, no, I don't do meetings. Like if there's a conference or a seminar and they want me to meet beforehand, I won't go to the conference or the seminar. It's just not my thing. He says, but so you don't have meetings, so you never talk to people. He's like, no, I talk to people all the time. I just won't have meetings about it. Meetings are there to apportion blame, and there's no point in having those. And he's been talking about it for 20 years, and now the universities aren't even expressing in this time that kind of idea that we now need more than ever. And there it is. There's that phrase from the new world, now more than ever, which I don't really like. But that empathy is kind of missing.
Yeah,
that understanding of like just people, and the idea that the kind of, I don't like using age brackets either, and generational tagging. I think it's rubbish because I think everyone's kind of got their own bit. But there was always the idea that millennials were more empathetic and compassionate. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know whether any group is more or less, but there's certainly a space for people like that to expand now. That's my thought.
Yeah, exactly. And Clint, I think a lot of it comes back to what I was talking about earlier, is your use of language. Now, would you rather have a meeting or would you rather have a conversation? It's exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Contextually, but in terms of your terminology and the energy behind it, I would much rather have a conversation, because meetings sound like something where we're going to be talking about something that's not, we're not going to come to a decision, so we need to decide about another time to decide about the thing that we're going to decide about. And
Completely.
It's a load of bollocks. Have a conversation. It's meaningful. It's that human connection, and in the business context, and that's true and authentic.
Okay, I really like that. So maybe we shouldn't call anything meetings. We should contextualize them. So I'm having a catch-up conversation. I'm having a brainstorm. I'm having a strategy session. Then I've got an idea of what I'm doing. Because a brainstorm's great. They're really exciting. But come with some parameters and give a proper brief. Otherwise, they're not a brainstorm. They're just a waste of 3 hours. Give some context, go into that session, have it, and leave. And then the stuff goes. Okay, so ban the word meeting.
Yeah, with you
Forever.
on that. Hashtag no meetings.
But I want to chat with you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Cool. Terry, this has been awesome. Thanks so much. Is there anything else you want to kind of add, or last view on this?
I think just in terms of adaptation, I know that you and I have thrown around various phrases, and I like, but I'm still grappling with the true meaning of it in terms of the brave new world that we live in. But I think that there is, and there always has been, in terms of the progression of man, the need for adaptation and adaptability. The intrinsic characteristic of a human being to navigate the highways and byways of life is, by its very nature, that person's ability to adapt. And I think in the business context, now more than ever, I'm seeing what I term the technology humanity polarity. And being in the tech space, there's just so much cool stuff that is happening, and so much cool stuff that I'm seeing people wanting that they've never wanted before. So we're involved in some super exciting projects. But I think that the need and the opportunity for adaptation through this COVID period that has kind of forced us into applying adaptation in our lives, personal and business. And we were talking earlier about the whole school scenario and how insane that's been. But I think that if we take a positive spin on it and actually really subscribe to the ability to be adaptable, the will to be adaptable, and the joy of adaptability, because it just provides you with such a broader perspective on life. And the fact that adaptation in business and in life is necessary now more than ever. And I think taking the moment to actually choose and actually want to go through your phases of adaptation is incredibly exciting for us as a species.
Oh, I think so too. I think it's never been a better time to be alive, even though it's crazy. The two things I think are really interesting about adaptation is the businesses that we're in. We can do it from anywhere, and we can have teams working all over the world, because then you choose from the best. You don't need the person who's in your town. And I think that's great, and it opens up opportunity for us. And then the other side is there are skills that, and it hasn't been overlooked, but it's certainly been frowned upon for ages. The skills that are hard skills. Where is my plumber? Where is my electrician? Where is the guy that can fix my car if I even need one anymore? All those kinds of things. Suddenly the awareness of we are in big trouble without those guys. And I think it's opened up that space as well to youngsters that perhaps weren't cut out for maybe a more philosophical, intellectual journey, can now actually see how important, and I think the respect is back there from the general public, seeing like, oh, I really do need that plumber. They don't just kind of exist in this netherworld where I never see them, because now I'm at home and have to deal with them, and the world kind of stops if my water doesn't work. And I think there's there's a duality. There's the fundamental need to move into tech, and there's a fundamental need to understand and appreciate people that do the services that we would be in trouble without. That might sound really condescending, but I don't mean it like that. I think there's just been a shift in the way that we value people. I think value might have come back a bit.
Yeah, and you know what, you're so right about that. And you have a look at some of the countries, your Nordic countries. I know your linkages with New Zealand and so on. And that there's a real acknowledgement. I was going to say a real honoring, but that may be a step too far. But a real acknowledgement of the importance of people throughout our life value chain. And I'm starting to see that more and more in the South African context, which I believe, because we've been more of a traditional society and a more of a hierarchical society.
Very.
That never mind flattening the curve, we're flattening the pyramid, which is fantastic, because now we can actually, we should be actually, from a human point of view, be acknowledging the guys who are cleaning our streets and who are packing our shopping bags and who are guarding our cars. You know, I've had a major shift in my own life just in that little space, where previously I would have this internal battle with the dude who was trying to show me how to park my car, and I'm like, I can park my bloody car, you know, I know what I'm doing. Now I'm just just taking a view of anybody and everybody who's there, trying to help and trying to just make a difference in their lives and earn a crust. Honor that. And the difference that what that has given me is that I'm now not going to the local supermarket and having to deal with the stress of that bloody car guard, but I'm actually dealing with now a positive engagement and a smile, and that leaves me in a better place. So it's you know, humanizing your interactions with the world actually has a marked benefit for you as a person, and isn't that a beautiful thing, that we are moving more towards our humanity and allowing the tech to actually provide us with more time for humanizing our lives.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. To really kind of destroy the title of a book, Love in the Time of COVID, is probably more apt than ever. I think we are seeing that humanity, and it's been amazing.
Yeah. No, exactly that.
Cool, Terry. Thanks so much. Really, really appreciate your time. We'll catch up for a real coffee soon.
Can't wait. Our local coffee shop is open, and we can do all the good social distancing and enjoy a cup of Java together. But thank you for your time, my friend, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Terry.
Cheers, Clint.